Alright, what's up guys? How you doing? I think it's time we talk about Fiendsmith, but engines in general, I think. But Fiendsmith is really the big topic on today's video, I think. I've been wanting to do this for a little bit now. Because I have fallen in love with Fiendsmith as time's gone on. It hasn't been out for that long. Oh, wait, what are we in? We're in May? We're in May, it came out, so I think maybe it's been about a year, maybe a little under a year. Because I think Worlds might have been last June, right? No, last June, last July. I think Worlds was, and Fiendsmith within that. So maybe it's been out for about a year yet. Some people would say it's probably ready for a ban. But as you know, I've been doing the mid-core duelist deck profile thing where it's just random crap I'm kind of throwing together as I go, you know, and then you see some pretty glaring issues with the decks as they go. Because the idea is like, you know, what can a deck do in today's standard? And I just wanted to run through engines that have been used where, like, they've been hit, or they should be hit, or people just complain about them in general. I think people are going to complain regardless. Like, it can be demoralizing when you play the game and just the stuff that you're not even dueling, like the actual deck, like someone's playing, you know, Ryziel, and it's the Fiendsmith cards that get you, or you're playing in Snake Eye format, it was like the Kashtira cards that would get you, where you're just like, well, that there is the bigger issue than, or even in the case of, you know, Fiendsmith, Kashtira, so many decks where they run like a runic engine, and you sit there going, well, it's the runic cards that are getting me, it's not even the actual, like, it's not even the actual engine that I'm dueling. So sometimes they can be a little demoralizing, where you're just like, well, I'm not even playing what I'm playing against, right? But there is, it's like caveat. It's like there's good in it when you really, really like put it together. So we just want to run through some quick engine talk about what we've had in at least the last couple of years. Because I think the only other one that I can really think of off the top of my head that was kind of generic back in the day would have been like the Zodiac stuff. But I wasn't around during that time. But I do know that it was like, it was pretty hectic across the board of how many different variants decks had, where it was like Zodiac something, and it was like the most versatile thing to get you to a Dryden, which was like a quick effect banish or something like that, or a quick effect pop. What does Dryden do? Dryden is quick effect destroy. It was a targeted destruction for any card, quick effect, once per turn. That's all it did, and that there was thrown into apparently a lot of decks at the time. And before that, they were all very engine heavy. Like, you had to have a lot of engine, but now we've streamlined our engines a bit. Cards do a lot of work. Is that inherently an issue? I would say yes, right? But I'm going to make an argument for why I think Fiendsmith needs to stick around for as long as possible, because it's the only thing that makes your road deck good. So, we'll move into some of the engines that are coming out, or that have been out, and are used for a certain reason. So we've got the Ryziel engine, right? Just a rank 4, doesn't activate to summon half their stuff, and if you ever get stuck, it's like the moon effect, right? Like when you've been interacted with too much, and then you're like, I've got these 2 bodies, I can get to 2 bodies, but I can't get to full combo. You can make moon, go the Fiendsmith combo, end on a Caesar, Fiendsmith in Paradise, pass turn, probably keep yourself alive, right? This is the same kind of thing, potentially, where if like you get stopped too many times, you just summon like X or Ice or whatever like that. Haven't used normal. Maybe you got 2 bodies in hand, make a detonator, pass. You're probably pretty good for like another turn, right? It's inherently quite big. It's like 10 cards with 2 in the extra, like minimum. But I'd say the real issue with why Ryziel could be seen as an issue, and why it needs to get hit to something like a smaller package rather than like a 10 card package in this sense here, where it's like you can set up a decent board with just Ryziel, then do your other stuff. It's what we're currently seeing in Mitsurugi is that any 2 bodies just make Ferrolimp, King of the Ferrolimps, and then you've got your starter for Mitsurugi, right? Like you've got your Reptile. You just go ham from there. Or in a lot of cases that can also run level 4s, because another rank 4 engine, it's Flame Banshee, right? So this here can get you into like your Protoss locks, or gets you into your Protoss lock, because it summons it gets your Nemesis flag, right? So that there can be seen as an inherent issue across the board, where it's just like making locks or getting into more powerful stuff, along with being quite a powerful engine, right? Like this here would probably not matter as much if Detonator didn't exist. If Detonator doesn't exist, then this here just becomes extra starters, and you cut down your count to like, maybe you keep cross. But realistically, you'd probably just cut yourself down to these 6 cards, you're good to go, right? I was even toying with the idea of Ryziel in Ashened, because you don't really need a fuse on turn 1, right? You can make Detonator, you can grab your... You can go through Flame Banshee, go into your Ashen stuff that way. You know what I mean? So it's like that's something you do with the Rogue option that, you know, actually helps there. But it's actually quite a strong engine with a one kind of caveat lock in there, and you might miss a search on X, depending on your board state. Arguably, probably not the strongest engine ever, right? On its own, quite nice. You know, like it's pretty consistent to get the Detonator because it just like summons lots of bodies. But the lock is enough for you to go, well, with rank 4s and in the Fiendsmith variant, you can force them to play Fiendsmith or Ryziel depending on what you stop. But yes, we're seeing a lot of success in this in the Mitsu stuff because it can just get to Feral Imps, and then even then half the time you can probably still end on a Detonator. Bit of an issue, but it's like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think Mitsu is the bigger problem. Then we got the Kashtira stuff. This has been played for ages. It had its own deck, then it lost its big boss monster, and then the deck just kind of died. The deck itself kind of died, but I would say that it is about 7 cards big. No extra deck slots are really needed, because you can probably... I have 1 duels on Fenrir Unicorn Birth, and that was all that I needed with like a hand trap in hand, right? Like that's all I needed, and this was enough to win, which just goes to show how powerful it is. A little bit less, probably just as like diverse as like a Ryziel engine like this, because you know you can't have anything on board to summon them. They're level 7s, little off. Not a whole lot of decks use not a lot of decks use 7s unless it's like some synchro-esque pile. But once again, the numbers, it's up to how you want to use it. But you could ram this into any rogue deck and probably do a lot better going second than you would normally with any kind of rogue deck. Remember, this is all going to be in relation to rogue decks and what they can do potentially, right? Like, so for instance, i.e., any rank 4 that can search your rogue deck stuff, this might be the way to go, right? But you will be locked, which means your play for links slows down. This one here, it's just extra power, right? It's extra power. They're big bodies, they're big, they're hard to get over. If you really want like a Regenesis line too, which haven't seen a whole lot of like niche like rogue stuff with Regenesis yet, so I can't really speak on it too much. I try to do Regenesis with Ancient Warriors, but the number of 2500 you have in hand just isn't enough. So you do need like a pretty like, you know, critical mass of 2500 to really get that to work. But just having these 7 cards in your deck going second or first really opens up playability, your ceiling for linking, and sometimes just ending on like Fenrir. Grab, if you open like Fenrir Birth, you go Fenrir, grab Unicorn, normal the Birth. So maybe sometimes playing Birth at 3 could be a thing, but I think 7 cards minimum, you've got yourself a pretty tight engine that just does a fair bit on its own. Can be quite scary, that with like 4 cards in hand or 3 cards in hand, you know, that's pretty good. Not to mention they bait stuff out. All of this here will bait stuff out. It'll bait out Imperms, it'll bait out Ashes, it'll bait out Ogres, whatever, right? And that there inherently helps your rogue deck playability, right? Because, you know, we'll talk about rogue decks in a sec. Then there was the Sky Striker engine. This was used for a little bit. It's really just a draw engine with like the Widow Anchor Negate, which is nice. But it's just like, if you got a deck that plays a lot of spells, you got used a little bit. I can't remember what decks were using it. I think Snake Eye did it for a bit, like when it got banned, when it got hit the second time, because you ran through the Fiendsmith stuff and there was just lots of spells. So you could just kind of like add, draw, you know, which was pretty neato. But once again, it's what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards with 1 extra deck slot for Kagari to turn your Hornet drones into something, so you can get these draws off. Makes Thrust really playable. Makes going second decks that use like a lot of power spells really good. Like you could have chucked this in like a Tempai deck if you really wanted to, right? Just to like, you know, board breaker, and then just engage your way to the rest of your combo. We would have been pretty good. Uh, but I think because it requires a bit of setup of having the 3 spell cards in graveyard, it wasn't played as much. But still, if you're suffering from consistency issues and you're going second or you're using a lot of spells, not the worst kind of engine in the world to use. We had the Runic stuff this year, had a huge explosion after Runic came out, where everyone was just chucking everything in with Runic. If you had an engine that was like 10 cards, and you could ram 20-something Runic cards in. I couldn't even include them all in the list of what you would be able to play. But normally you'd play like max of every card except for like Droplet and Dispelling. I think are the 2 you wouldn't. And then that gives you. Then it also gives you like protection. If you've got like if we are running a rogue deck engine that's decent sized or whatever, but you can still fit 20 Runic cards in. Every single Runic quick play becomes protection for the rogue side of your deck, which might struggle with that kind of stuff, right? So this year saw a lot of playability, but then it saw even more playability in the fact that the numbers were so diverse. Like, I know that the Math Labyrinth version was playing 3 of one of the quick plays along with all of the Runic fusions because the numbers lined up better, and you had protection, right? Like it was a neat little package. Which is still something you can do, by the way. You can still play a couple of Hugins and some Runic cards if you don't care so much about battle. Like if you're playing more of a grindy low to the ground deck, you can just play Runic cards as interaction, as like imperms and destructions and cyclones, with the off chance that if they do go to destroy something, you've got Hugin. I think I was doing this in there was a build I did of Rescue Ace, which isn't rogue, but now it is because we lost OSS, right? But I was doing this with to get around Harpies and Lightning Storm. On the off chance that I opened one of the Runic cards, I could go into Hugin and protect. The only issue that I had most of the time was the fact that you would end on SP, and then that normally locked you out of your Hugin stuff, right? Because Hugin, they need to be summoned to the EMZ. So there's play there, right? But the engine's really, really big most of the time. Like it's probably like at least a 15 card minimum if you really want to go nuts on it, unless of course you run field spells and stuff like that. Probably not that great, but realistically every deck can use the Runic cards where you can just whittle them down to nothing, right? But it's up to, but it just leaves for very long games where you'll most likely lose to time. Then you get the Beastials. Beastials been used around forever, hence why they're limited. Very, very strong. I'd say that these 6 here are kind of mandatory for anything, and then maybe you add more Ball Drakes to get more numbers if you're actually running like a Beastial engine. Like I said, pretty good with Regenesis because it is just a critical mass of 2500s. Dice to draw a little with the Rebellion, but the regain, the effect that you get off of regained. The benefit you get off of regained and the grind that you have of summoning back a Magnamort, like really good Dragon decks to summon back Magnamort every single turn. Getting a Dragon Surge every single turn is nuts, right? Then like Boldrake didn't see much play at the start, but then did once Druisworm was gone. I'd say he's almost better than Druisworm. The only issue is that he can't tribute himself. If he could tribute himself, then he'd be just as broken as Druisworm. But even then, like Boldrake set tribute Druisworm, that's 2 removals right there. This thing banishes. This thing sends. This target sends. This just banishes. It does target. It targets and banishes. But it banishes, which means it's gone. That's nuts, right? But yeah, just the kind of like grind game that you get with these cards is nuts. And it's just really, really good removal because normally you're getting rid of one of their monsters from the graveyard, which hard counters the Fiendsmith stuff, by the way. And then you have the removal in Druisworm, which can just be linked off. You can sit on a Baldrake, tribute something, get rid of banish an extra deck monster. It's nuts. This is a really, really good engine. Really, really good engine. It would be crazier if these 2 were at 3. Hence why they're not at 3, they're at 1, because they're insane, right? But once again, really good rogue deck options if you run 6, if you run Synchro 4s, or like Synchro 10s, ranked 6s, if you just want the link spam, if you're one of those things, or it's just really good to have if you just need bodies on board. Like it can survive, it can protect you for another turn. This thing here can draw you into more of your stuff. Really good rogue stuff, right? It's just reliant on the opponent a bit too much. It's reliant on lights and darks, which means it can be quite format dependent. It's reliant on your opponent doing things half the time. This getting banished just ruins your entire play. They're easy to play around cards. I will say that. They're easy to play around cards, but still really, really good engine. The 7th Tachyon stuff, also really good for any rogue kind of engine, even like, because like, I mean, these guys use it, right? Which means that if you have these paired with the Rise of your stuff and you have a rank 4 that gets you into your stuff or gets you into your plays, like I should have played this entire package in Chronomaly. Like realistically, I should have played this whole thing in Chronomaly with the 7th Tachyon stuff, because a lot of rogue decks suffer from a couple of things. Either they're too inconsistent, they're too slow, or they're not resilient to hand traps enough. And that's the whole issue, right? Where it's like sometimes you might need most of the time you need like a 2-card starter, because there's no like 1-card starters, right? Like there's that issue with rogue decks in general across the board, right? But in the hopes of, we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, so that's why stuff like this helps a lot, whether it be just a basic rank 4 engine or the 7th Tachyon stuff, just to increase consistency. Because you also find that this works in decks that don't use the extra deck at all. If you use it, what locks you into Exeges, sure, but if you're playing like a ritual deck that needs 4s, this can search all the 4s. It can unbrick your hand because you can put stuff back as well, you know. So it's really, really neat. Pairs really well with Ryziel. Does increase the counter. A lot of rogue decks tend to have quite big engines because they're older, so they run under like an older card design principles that Konami used to do. But realistically, it all works together quite nicely in this kind of like theme here, or you just play it on their own, right? Still really, really good. But once again, locks you into Exeges, which means only certain decks can use it. It's only 5 cards, maybe 6 if you want to add a 3rd Ascension. The targets are somewhat limited. These cards can't search Mitsurugi stuff at all. Not that Mitsurugi needs it, because realistically you can just search Ryziel stuff. But there's a lot of utility in it, with some downside. With some downside of, guys a little harder to draw, doesn't really get you anywhere. It's just a starter, maybe sometimes an extender. Once again, if I go back to Chronomaly, you normally may needed a level 4 and a level 5 in hand. This can search any of the other ones if you've already opened one. That's pretty cool. They're all Exeges, all great, right? But yeah, a little more niche than say like Beastials or Runic or the Kashtira stuff, because it doesn't do anything on its own. Then there's the Tempest Engine. Was a whole deck at one point. Now one of each card can just win you the game if you've played through enough and just opened Kaiman or haven't used your normal. Did this a lot in like the Hieratic deck that I played. There was a Dragon Ruler deck that I played at one point, which just I sided in all of these cards. Just because, one, they make Synchro 7s, which some of the Synchro 7s were good, because Synchro 7s can go into more Rank 7s, which the Dragon Rulers were good at. Or it was just go into Seals, go to your opponent's turn, they play some stuff, you get Genroku, and then you've got your entire Tempest Engine online from there, and it's just an OTK from there. Once again, Dragon Reliant, Fire Reliant, lots of one-offs. Like if Kaiman was at 3, then, you know, maybe different. It'd be probably more playable on other decks, but you know, you're not really locked out of anything. You get locked into dragons on the Synchro 7. So normally when you do this line, you're kind of committed to it. But I think it's a cool little OTK engine, just as much as like the Princess Raging Phoenix OTK that Snake Eye had. But that's once again Fire Reliant. Yeah, like I think this engine's so strong in my mind, right? When it comes down to it, depending on how you're building and what your deck's doing, or remember talking in a rogue standard, right? Like if you have trouble going for game, and you're like, I'm just kind of sick of this, but I never use my normal or whatever. I think if I'm wrong, depending on how you do this, this is worth it. To get Kaiman. Kaiman is worth losing or banishing your hand for, because if you're doing it at the right time, you're winning from this point anyway, right? Like, the whole point is to get your rogue deck to win and see what they can do. Because unfortunately, like I said before, you're probably not getting the support that you want. And this moves into, then like the size of it is 1 of each card, so what's that, 2, 4, 6, and then 2 in the extra. That's it, right? Now, we move on to the actual point of the video. I just want to go through some other engines that rogue decks can use, that most decks can use, just to be like, there are other options there, right? But there are inherent issues with those other options where they just don't really do what 90% of rogue decks really want, right? Now, if I were to say what does a rogue deck struggle with the most, in my mind, from what I've seen, it's hand traps, right? It's hand traps. It struggles with 1-card starters, as in most rogue decks don't have 1-card starters. So it struggles with the fact that your opponent can do so much off 1 card and you can't. And I'd say that the biggest issue is Nibiru. I think Nibiru is probably one of the bigger problems that the decks that rogue decks have, because they tend to be quite lengthy. They tend to need a few cards to get to where they're going. Formidable end board, sure, but if a Nibiru can just beat it, you've just lost your entire thing, right? Now, decks these days are built in ways where hand traps don't really need to be banned, right? Most decks have enough extenders that they can play through an Ash Blossom, they can play through an Imperm, they can either play around or into or bait out a Nibiru early on. Decks might struggle against like talents, but that's why it's limited to 1, whatever, right? Now, if we're talking what kind of support does any XYZ, and not XYZing, but like ABC, XYZ, 1, 2, 3, generic rogue deck needs, right? It's always going to be probably written as the most broken card you'd ever see in an archetype that doesn't do anything, right? That's the kind of support that rogue decks need. They need huge changes to the way that they play. They need cards that all of a sudden have 4 effects when originally they had 2. Once again, I go back to Chronomaly. Nebradisc is a full card with like 2 effects on it and like a crazy lock. Half of the Chronomaly cards are about 2 lines of text, and that's all they do, right? But if you were to start making new stuff to compete with today's standard, you would need to fill that card up with stuff that Chronomaly doesn't even do, right? This is where Fiendsmith comes in, why I have fallen back in love with the archetype. I've always liked it, by the way. I want to say I've always liked it. I always thought it was a neat little package. But I also hate it at the same time because it's too generic, it doesn't lock you into anything, and every good deck can play it too, and that's an issue, right? But if every good deck is playing it, then that means every rogue deck should be playing it too. Because if an engine can be compared to an engine and you can play it better, you can normally outshine the other engine, right? Because most of the time, they need the backup. Now, Fiendsmith, hyper consistent with Moon, right? It would be a worse engine without Moon. I still think Moon should be banned, and you should just be playing with Fiendsmith cards. But whatever, right? I also should probably add this in as just so I can talk about this. When I get to the reasons why Fiendsmith is the best support any rogue deck could have. Fiendsmith is the best rogue support any deck could ask for. It has a 1-card starter, right? An engraver, or even trapped, right? A normal summon of Lurry can get you into more things than a normal summon of any rogue deck can get, right? It has stupid recursion. If left alone in the graveyard, it recurs and has infinite grind game. Better than like any single deck I've seen. Bar say like Labyrinth's grind game's kind of nuts, right? Labyrinth's grind game's nuts, but it's meant to be. But Fiendsmith gives every deck the ability to grind. There's only like 1 to 2 bricks in it. Like I'd say that these cards, the 3 engraver, the 1 Lacrima, the 1 Lurry, 2 tracked, Paradise. You need tracked for your grind state because once it's in the graveyard, you can't get it back. And then at least like Desiree, Sequence, Requiem, and Moon. Right? Now I think the full package includes Caesar, Necroquip, Chaos Angel, and probably Agnunde, right? But so yeah, it's got a great grind game. Has a 1-card starter. has removal in the middle of its combo in the sense of equipping Engraver with Requiem or any of the links, right, equipped to it, can then just remove any face-up card on the void field. It has interaction on your opponent's turn in its archetype in the sense of either Fiendsmith in Paradise, which it's layered, right, because you don't send this on your first turn, you send this on their turn, which means you can wait a little bit to see how much their hand actually plays out. It doesn't need to be something that can be messed with. It can't be Diddy Crow straight away. You know, that you can mess with it a bit. It's layered. It can come back. It come out later. Desiree's hard out because normally it's got target protection. Which, if you look at rogue decks, a lot of this stuff they got weird wordings on things, but they have like weird outs, like, or they need more than one card to really kind of keep their thing going. And then also like its versatility, like Chaos Angel, just gives you a huge body that is hard to out, and a banish on summon, just crazy. Like all of a sudden, like half their life points are gone, and they've lost cards, and they can't touch it half the time. Agnumde, if you do play Agnumde, is almost an OTK on its own too. So pair the two, not bad. And with the access to Caesar, every single deck that plays it has an out to Nib. Every rogue deck loses to Nib, and if you want to stand there, you can tell me I'm wrong in the comments all you want. You're not baiting out a Nib or getting to your Nib out before Nib hits. Fiendsmith can bait Nib, right? Leave your board clear, except with a token or something like that. Or it can just straight up go, you just don't get to Nib anymore. Sounds like every rogue deck wants a card that just outs Nib. And then also with the advent of Dippity, it now has Primite. Because Primite's also a really good engine. I should have included Primite in here. Realistically, Primite is a fantastic engine, but all you really have to do is just ram some rando bloody... It's not having normal summon, and ram some stupid normal monster in there, and you've got to banish every turn. Should have spoken about that, completely forgot it existed until just now. But Fiendsmith can play with the Primite stuff, because Dippity exists, which, by the way, this paired with this just opens up so much more bullshit that this deck that this engine can do. But this isn't the Fiendsmith problem. This is whatever Konami's trying to do, right? Like Light Fiends were like a dime a dozen. Like, what were they like? It was Lurry and it was White Dust on, and then Konami started making some bull crap to just like really raise that ceiling, which I'm hoping means that they're not getting rid of the Fiendsmith engine anytime soon, because every deck list I'm going to have in the future now has to now incorporate this, mainly on the Nib, mainly on the Caesar. It's because of the Caesar, but also in a lot of decks that require Fiends, it's a starter too through the Area Leader line. That's not Area Leader. Where'd my Area Leader go? I thought I had Area Leader. Aerial Leader. Alright, so Area Leader, which is a TCG exclusive, but I speak English here, so that's what I'm talking about. Between Area Leader, Unchained Lord of Yama, Unchained Soul Yama, and Shivara, it searches any fiend in the game as well. So if you need it, so this becomes a full starter for any fiend deck too, or decks that have fiends in it. So for instance, I was building Clear World, and the Fiendsmith engine's in here. The unicorns are only, that is right. The Fiendsmith engine's in here because Phantom, which gets you both your spell cards, is a fiend. So if you don't open Phantom, and you open other stuff, and you open like one Engraver and no Phantom and everything else, Engraver is a Phantom through that line. And realistically, if you don't get to that, you've just probably outed half their interactions in their hand, and the Clear World stuff should be fine on its own. Where did I put that? There. So yeah, that's. I know. I hate seeing, because I know I've seen the comments. I see it all the time. I've said it myself. I hate seeing decks that just have the Fiendsmith engine rammed in there. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it simplifies building. I think it simplifies deck building too much. But when you really, really narrow down the topic of like mid-core and trying to make it relevant for today's era, it is the support you've asked for. It is the support that every rogue deck player with a pet deck has asked for, because it does everything that a rogue deck could want. It leaves you alive for turns to let crappy engines set up. It insulates your plays with Caesar and stuff like that. If you're just like, yeah, Nib's going to kill me with this hand. Because that's the thing, you can make it where you go, well, I die from Nib in this hand, or you've got the talent so you can like rip the Nib out of their hands. So, it's versatile. It's a very easy line to play. Like, it's not hard at all. It doesn't lock you into anything. It doesn't interrupt your plays at all either. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, I did this turn, so I can't do this anymore. It is extra deck heavy, but, unless you're playing like some crazy Cyber's Link pile, you don't really need every card in your extra deck, and you can like cut out Agnumde. You don't always need Desiree and Fiendsmith in Paradise. I think this is pretty much, I think this is too good to get rid of. Moon just means that if you only start with your engine and you can get to 2 bodies and you get stopped and you have nowhere else to go, you go Moon, go Fiendsmith combo, and either you rip more cards out of their hand, or you end on like a Caesar or a Desiree and you pass, and that gets you to another turn where you can like draw into more stuff or recur what you've lost. Mess with your opponent a bit. It really elongates those grind games as well, which rogue decks can't do. Like, I've played a lot now. Like, if I go to my YouTube real quick, what have I done so far? Right, like, because there's only like maybe one deck that I've played where it wouldn't have made it any better. Like, if I think I could have put Fiendsmith in Hieratic. I could have done Fiendsmith instead of Dragon Link, and I think it would have been better. I think that I could have put it in Chronomaly, and then I would have had Exeses. I would have had Nib Protection, because Nib killed me a lot. Even though it has Vamana, sometimes you just weren't getting to Vamana, but you still had all those bodies. Bugs didn't need it. I think Allure Queen easily could have used it because they're all lights and darks. Fiendsmith Allure Queen would be fine. You've got a Soul Charge in there for Allure Queens. You have Nib Protection. You've got more lights to send off of Chaos Allure Queen. Magispectic, I don't think could have used it too well, but maybe could have. Because once again, Nib Protection. There's no way to protect yourself from Nib in this deck at all. You just get locked into Magispectors, right? But once again, if you do the Fiendsmith stuff first and you get stopped a bunch, then you normal Bombuko or Crow, you're good to go, right? Warrock could have used it too, because I think it only mattered if Earth Warriors attacked. So then you would have just had bigger bodies that could have just like gone for game. You would have had stuff to link off into. The Cyframe, this one here, probably could have used it too, because the Beastials, once again, all the Beastials and the Cyframes required your opponent to do too much. Dark World, no, don't play Fiendsmith in Dark World. You're just going for the hand rip. Ritual Dogmatica also probably could have used it properly. Just because honestly, with how many Greeks rogue decks have, you go to 40, slap in a whole Fiendsmith engine to get yourself to 47. You're fine, and that's only if your engine's really really big. What was that? Easy source. I gotta look at that later. But yeah, so that's my video. I want you to know that I have been back and forwards on Fiendsmith a lot. I did really like it at the start, then I started to hate it because I saw it too often. Then I felt like I needed to play it and everything. But now I realise that with all the rogue decks I've been playing, and the fact that they never get support, and they probably won't get support, and if they do get support, it won't be what you want. Fiendsmith is the support that you've asked for. I'll see you next time.